Welcome to the Key to Growth podcast, Home Services Marketing Unlocked, with me, your host, Jen McKee. Every week, I sit down with top marketers in the trades, from the brains behind $100 million companies to those scaling from 1 to 3, even to 10 million, breaking down exactly how they got where they are and uncover the secret to their success. If you're ready to grow your business and get real, actionable insights, you are in the right place. Let's unlock the key to your marketing success starting now.
Welcome to the Key to Growth podcast. I am the host, Jen McKee, and today I'm at AHR recording for the first time live, and I have Dennis the Apprentice, who I'll let introduce himself, and then we'll get started. So tell us who you are in case someone doesn't know.
Yeah, so Dennis the Apprentice. I owned a plumbing and heating company up in Seattle, Washington for 25 years and built that. We just had a successful exit about 2 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So exciting.
And so now I'm free. I really am passionate about the trades and helping young people. A lot of the young people, if they're not going to college, they don't know what they're going to do. It's kind of the school of hard knocks, and it doesn't have to be that way.
So you have an Instagram following is where like the majority of your Dennis the Apprentice content is. But of course, I love to talk about marketing, not just social media, all of marketing. And I like to start at the beginning.
Yes.
So we're going to start with Gene Johnson, because before we started recording, Dennis showed me some really, really great content that Gene Johnson was doing and some really out of the box marketing that Gene Johnson was doing. So I really like to start at how old is it? Tell me about the beginning of the company.
Well, it was in 1976. So I came on in 2001.
Okay.
So my father-in-law started the company.
Okay.
So it was plugging along. It was a classic mom and pop shop.
Yeah.
4 or 5 techs. And then I came along about 2001.
Okay. And so when you came along, was marketing already in place, or was that something, because you obviously have a creative brain and not everybody is cut out to think in marketing terms, but you do. So is that something that you had to bring to the table and kind of innovate? And was there resistance against it, or how did that go?
Yeah, it was scary. Back then, we're going way back.
Yeah.
We were
at the beginning.
It was the Yellow Pages back in the day. And so my push was to get into the Yellow Pages big time. We had a little ad.
Yeah.
But we ended up getting pretty big in the Yellow Pages. And we did some pretty cool creative things there as well in the Yellow Pages just to get noticed. The Yellow Pages was a crazy world.
Yeah.
Where if you weren't there,
you didn't exist.
You literally did not exist.
Yeah.
And so we put a lot of money into that. And then Reach Local came, and Reach Local introduced us to Google AdWords. And it could actually tell you what money you got from what money you put in.
The analytics were better.
There was
less advertisement.
Amazing. So we dropped Yellow Pages 100% and went Google Ads 100%.
Wow. So do you feel like you've always been open to fun, creative marketing ideas?
Totally. I like to have fun, and my father-in-law said if it's not fun, it's work, and who wants to work?
Okay, that's great. Yes. Okay, so tell us so obviously we're going to get to Dennis the Apprentice, because that's huge, and you're doing that almost completely through social media, at least from the beginning. But I do want to start with some of the video marketing and just creative marketing ideas that you guys put out there, because one thing that's really interesting is that a lot of them seemingly didn't start as a video, like maybe a lot of the Gene Johnson for plumbing signs that you showed me. I mean, was that the sign? Was it what was the idea behind that?
Yeah, so
maybe tell us what it is, because if no one's seen it.
Yeah, so this would be around when Trump was first running for president.
Right.
So that was pretty creative in itself.
You were just catching on to that creative.
Oh, I was running for president, right?
Right.
So that was kind of a
feeling inspired.
And so I already had lots of creativity, but I thought that was fun. And I'd kind of thought I'd had this inkling of an idea about putting campaign signs out.
Okay.
Why can't Gene Johnson run for plumber?
Yeah.
Instead of mayor? And so I actually made signs that said Gene Johnson for plumber.
That looked like presidential signs, or looked political.
They were campaign signs, and it said, the way I made it an official campaign sign was I wrote, remember to vote November 2nd, whatever.
No way. You really confused a lot of people.
I did confuse a lot of people.
I wonder if that was okay.
I had several stories. I had customers tell me stories. Like an old lady was walking on the sidewalk, and she walked by the sign. She walked back. She read the sign. She shook her head and then walked up the sidewalk.
Yes.
And so I'm like, yes, that's great. And so not only was I out in the community, I put about 300 signs out a year. I put them all on the roads where everybody else put the campaign signs out.
Yeah.
It was scary. My heart was racing because it was kind of edgy. It was public.
Okay.
Some people would call me and be mad at me and say, take the signs down. And I would say, no problem.
What were you so mad about? What were they mad about?
Oh, if I put them too close to the yard. Well, I was making fun. I was making fun of the election. I says, no, I'm trying to bring attention to the election. It says, remember to vote. I'm bringing attention to the election. Please don't. That was my angle, right?
Yeah.
I had the city say, you have to take your signs down because they're not campaign signs. And I go, yes, they are. I'm encouraging people to vote.
No way. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then you had this video of your son.
Well, what's cool about the sign really quick is the sign is on one corner of a neighborhood.
Okay.
But if you take a picture of it and post it, now it's on the internet forever. And you can go still see those pictures today.
And so people were doing that.
Yeah. So people are doing that and I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so you can take a campaign sign that's very inexpensive. It's on a neighborhood getting lots of exposure, but you can take a picture of it and put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And so you're getting exposure in a number of different ways.
Right. And then even probably people were like putting it in their neighborhood groups because they were annoyed by it or like seeing it or questioning it. So
most people loved it.
Yeah.
Most people thought it was hilarious and funny. And they said,
except for the city.
Here's what happened. The city lady called me. She says, you have to take your signs down. And I go, but they're campaign signs. And she's like, you and I both know they're not campaign signs and you have to take them down. And I says, can you read the ordinance? And so she read the ordinance. And so there was this long silence. And I said, it was a good idea, wasn't it? And she said, actually, I love it.
That's so good.
So you know what I did? I never took them down.
Yeah.
In fact, I had one city take them down and bring the ones I took down in their city. They saved them and brought them back to me.
Oh, good. So you could reuse them.
Yes. So one city loved them so much that they kept them for me.
That was so nice.
It was so fun.
So did you also do like regular signs in people's yards? And no, it was just a campaign sign.
Yes. We had those signs that said, another fantastic job by Gene Johnson.
Right.
But how often did the plumbers?
They weren't exciting. Yeah.
The plumbers said they put them out, but we never saw them, right?
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
That's so good. So you had another really creative marketing idea. I got the chance to talk to Dennis before we started recording this, and I think that it's also something that a lot of people could learn from. So you kind of like went into this niche, really. So tell us a little bit about what happened with that.
With the campaign?
No, and we could talk about that, but I was speaking about the bikes.
Oh,
but
sure.
I feel like there's a lot
we have
of great things that you guys were doing.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, but I think the bike thing is really interesting. So could they find it if they searched you? You're running for president?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Gene Johnson Plumbing and running for president stuff.
Yeah.
There's a picture of a naked Trump on a porch. It's very raw video. I didn't really know how to edit back then.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Thank you.
Okay, so you got to go look up his video. But let's talk about the bikes because, again, like finding a niche that you can make an impact in that other people aren't looking at, I think is a big thing.
Yeah.
So how did you find it? What was it? How did that go down?
Okay, so another plumbing company was sponsoring the Seattle rugby team, pro rugby. And I'm like, so I interviewed that guy. I took him out to lunch and I said,
Yes.
What on earth? How is Raymart Plumbing advertising for this pro rugby team in Seattle? And they won the national championship.
Whoa.
So he told me about it. He's like, well, rugby, they come here from all over America. They're hardworking guys. We're all loyal. They play for my team. They ask me for a job because they're not pro rugby players don't make millions of dollars.
Right.
So they need to work. So he says, well, you want to work for the sponsors first. Well, they happen to be one of the sponsors. So these rugby players would come to work at their plumbing company.
Ooh, so they would get recruits from it.
And they would work there. And then eventually, when their rugby days were up, they'd already been working at their plumbing company for 4 years. And now you've got this big, strapping, athletic Samoan.
Genius.
And he's a plumber.
So that's why you went for the bikes?
So I'm like, well, I'm not a rugby player. He's like, well, dude, you're a biker. And I go, well, yeah, biking, but like, I don't know how to connect. Cyclists are usually really thin, It's like, well, I got to make big, tough plumbers. And so anyway, so that was my mind was open to that concept. And I was on a bike. I was training bikes. I was on a training ride and I ran across this girl that was running for UW. She was on the UW cycling team. So we started talking. And what she said was, you business owners don't understand. We put all our stuff on social media.
Right.
And so if you would sponsor a cycling team, we're not going to come work for you, but we're going to take pictures of our stuff in your jerseys.
Yeah.
And that was when I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So it seems like you really early on understood the power of social media.
100%. Yeah.
And so because everything you've said is like, well, then they'll take a picture of it and put it on social media. So was there anything else or like, did you have to convince your team or like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people might not buy into this.
Well, remember your talk, you said, is there a silver bullet
Right.
for marketing?
Yeah.
There is. The silver bullet is if you're interested in
Yeah.
marketing, then you'll market.
Mm-hmm.
And so I happen to be interested in it and I liked it and I'm interested. Like before the internet, we had these crazy truck wraps.
Okay. Before it was a thing.
My truck wrap I had a big, huge Isuzu box truck.
Yeah.
And it was a big blue tile background, and it was an empty roll of toilet paper.
That's so good.
And it had the one thing we can't help you with. And then it was a little tiny Gene Johnson logo in the corner.
That's so good.
It's totally backwards, right?
Yeah.
You want your name to be as big as possible.
Yeah.
And the guy said, well, you plumbers all see your plumbing trucks because you're interested in plumbing, but no one else sees them. You got to get people to see your plumbing truck.
Right. You have to stand out.
Yeah. And so we had these big rolls of empty toilet paper driving around Seattle with a little Gene Johnson in the corner. And we did that for years. And so that was even before the internet.
Okay. So did you track that?
Well, back then we weren't sophisticated enough. Like this before service type.
Numbers
It
and...
was before service type, and then people would just reference the trucks, or I would show up for an estimate and I'd have a roll of toilet paper.
You would?
Yeah. And I would say, is my truck parked okay? And they'd look at it and go, yeah. I go, actually, we lied. We have toilet paper too. And they would laugh and they'd invite me into the house.
Okay, that's so good. I love that.
So that's before the internet. So the point is, I was interested.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more than that. I think it's that you were willing to try things and potentially fail at it. And I think that especially, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you did was fun. And I mean, I'm a marketing person, so marketing is fun for me. Like, this is fun. Let's try it. And I think some people maybe don't feel that way about marketing.
If you aren't willing to lose, then you shouldn't be in business, because that's entrepreneurial, is trying things and figuring out how to do things.
Right. In a successful way. That's true. Okay. So,
Many things fail.
right. You can't, yeah, exactly. You only fail when you quit. Keep going. Things don't work and you try something else if it works. So then you're no longer with Gene Johnson. Gene Johnson still exists. They still doing crazy marketing. We don't have to answer that.
Not like mine.
So, but then you went on to market yourself, and I see what you're doing. A lot of exits, people want to do this, or even while they're still involved in the business, start building a personal brand. And I mean, building a personal brand is one thing on its own. And then the next part is like, okay, so what do you sell? Like,
Yes.
what is your objective with your brand?
Yes.
So how did that start? Tell us about Dynasty Apprentice and how it started.
Okay. The way it started was I went on my first 2-week vacation.
Oh, because you had been running a business.
Yes. So I go on a 2-week vacation, and after 3 days, I'm going bat crazy.
Yeah. Like, what? I'm supposed to be doing something right now.
Yeah. And we've got 2 families, like, Kimberly and her family and me and my family. We're all in one big house. I'm going stir crazy. And I have wrecked several vacations, losing my attitude about sitting around too much.
Yeah.
So I was trying not to do that. So I went into the kitchen and I wrote a book, How to Rock Your Apprenticeship.
You read a whole book?
I sat down, it took 3 days, and I just wrote a book.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not published yet because, so I wrote this book, and then I talked to a publisher and they said, well, you need to round it out. It was pretty straight to the point.
Yeah.
But so I thought I was going to publish this book, and no one knows who I am. I'm stuck up in the northwest in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
So I went on social media and started being Dennis the Apprentice. The idea was to build a brand to sell my book, How to Rock Your Apprenticeship. It's still not published.
I mean, I don't know that books are going to, they're great.
They'll help you get speaking gigs.
I'm writing a book,
Yes.
but I'm not going to be able to live on my book.
No.
But they're good.
Yeah.
But I don't love
Done.
them. Okay. So if you haven't been to Dynasty Apprentice on Instagram, what you'll see is you talking to apprentices.
That's my main passion. Well, I love a lot of things about business, but the one thing that's being missed in it is everybody's complaining about the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I started realizing that in my business, we built our business by training young people. And so all my best techs, almost 100% built them all. They all came from our own company from within.
Yeah.
And I also learned that when you have a training organization, you attract really good techs that want to teach.
Oh.
And when you have really good techs that want to leave a legacy, most people that are good want to give back. So I call it leaving a legacy. So when you have plumbers that want to leave a legacy and apprentices want to learn, it creates a really cool environment.
Yeah.
And that's what we built.
Well, it creates a growth environment.
100%. No one leaves. Everybody's invested in the young kids.
Yeah.
Young kids grow faster because the 4-year apprenticeship is based on a guy going to work and then going home and drinking beer, maybe going to class once a week. And they're capable of so much more. And so we took our apprentices as serious as college. And we had classes, we had hands-on classes, we had code classes. I expected them to read their trade journals at home. And if you do that in 2 or 3 years, most of of these kids are smarter than my veteran plumbers.
So this existed within your past company.
That's what we built. Yeah.
Okay. So was this like a training program that other companies could use as well? Or it was like mostly just internal?
We built it ourselves. We didn't know of anything else really.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, like if you're, so, okay, how did it impact retention?
tremendously.
Right. So you weren't necessarily like training somebody and then they're leaving.
Hardly anybody left.
But so would other companies be like, can you train my guy?
No.
No?
No.
I feel like it could have been something there.
So what we did was, I can tell my secrets now.
I don't know. If we need to cut this out.
No, it's good.
Everyone stop recording.
So we stayed in a small little shop for a long time until we were forced to buy a big shop. And then when we bought a big shop, we bought a big location, and we already had a small training lab. So we invested a ton into a real training lab. Like my training lab had 13 live tanklesses on the wall. And so in the Northwest, we were the first company to have any type of on-site training, and we'd already tested it at our smaller company. And so all the suppliers and manufacturers gave us material, tankless water heaters and the like.
Nice.
And then we built the whole thing ourselves. And then what we did is, since all the manufacturers gave us material, they started saying, hey, can we bring by our rep to do a training on Navient or whatever? And so we'd say, sure. And so we invite other companies. And so many of our trainings would have several companies at them all the time.
Yeah.
So it just kind of set the stage. Like we never hired someone from another company, but I did have one of my best hires. I asked, why are you here? And he's like, well, I was working at another company, but every time we went into a boiler room, my plumber would say, this is over my head, called Gene Johnson. And so he's like, well, I want to work at Gene Johnson.
Right.
And so that's how we got our guy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your personal brand and how you built it, because although you're building this on Instagram and you did on YouTube as well, I think there's a lot of things that you do not on social media that impact the work that you do on social media.
Sure.
So how did that go?
Yeah, so this is back when it was just getting going. And so my following's smaller than a lot of guys because I don't get in the tools. Like a lot of the guys show off tools and show off their jobs. I never was in the field showing off my tools because I was focused on the training, the soft skill part.
Right.
So, but I just stayed in my lane, and I'm really the only one that really talks directly to apprentices still.
Yeah.
And so because of that, then Ellen Rohr,
Mhm.
I own a Zoom Drain company, and she invited me to podcast at their Zoom Drain booth at the Wet Show. So I said yes. And so that's one of my principles is I say yes to open doors. I'd never podcasted before.
Well, that was lucky for me. So you to podcast with me today.
I say yes to almost everything. And so my very first podcast was live. And because I was Dennis the Apprentice, all the influencers knew me.
Yeah.
And so like Eric Ani, Mechanical Hub, and George the Plumber, and John Thompson, the Plumbing God, all these top influencers. I says, hey, I'm podcasting the Zoom Drain booth. Will you come by? They all came to my very first podcast. I'd never podcasted. It was all live, and it was all these big influencers sat with me. That's how I got my start into podcasting.
That's fun. And then you had your YouTube channel. So, okay, so what are you doing now with Dennis the Apprentice?
So I developed a site called Trade Traction, helping young people get traction in the trades. And so there's content on there. Right now it's all free, but I have young people reach out and say, how do I get a job in the trades? They went and applied at 3 plumbing companies and they all said no. And so now what do you do?
Yeah.
So I have a course on how to get a job in the trades.
That's great.
And that's designed even like I go speak at high schools.
Okay.
And so I can give that card out and they can come to my platform and they can learn how to get a job in the trades. And then I've got a course on how to do well as an apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just bump along, there's things that you can do that will make you shine. You'll get raises faster. You'll get a better apprenticeship out of your years as an apprentice. So I teach that. And then I'm discovering that a lot of people don't have apprentices because they can't afford them. So I was trying to stay out of the sales. There's so many people that teach sales.
Okay.
I love sales, but there's other people doing that. But I'm starting to get back into sales because so many people don't understand sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a course. I'm helping people know how to sell better so they can afford an apprentice so I can help them train them.
Right.
So they can grow their company.
I feel like you need to then connect with Kimberly and then she'll make sure that their business has the money.
We're working on that. Yes.
That's fun.
Yes.
Okay. And so then you mentioned something earlier about, okay, you did so much with marketing, and there's so many people who will say, I don't have time, or I don't have the money, or I don't know how to do that or how to create that video. So what message do you have for those people?
So first of all, if you're in business as a plumber, there's a lot of guys out there by themselves.
Yeah.
And they're overwhelmed. I say hire an apprentice. And they say they can't afford it. Then I say, let me teach you.
Yeah.
But this is what the apprentice does. Not only does he learn the trade, everybody's bad at the biggest complaint about young people is they're on their phone.
Yeah.
Well, why not use the phone as a tool and have them hold that phone and video you fixing the bathtub, and then let that young person that knows how to do social media post that on your Facebook page and promote your business.
Yeah.
So now you've got a young person on their phone, paying attention, making a little video, and now he's marketing for you. And guess who we're marketing to? We're marketing to moms, right? That's what everybody wants, middle class, middle-aged, man and wife of the home.
Yep.
Well, if we're training a young apprentice and we're recording those videos and having fun, guess who's watching them?
Yeah.
Parents.
Yeah.
It's the perfect marketing plan is to have the apprentice on the phone, recording the plumber do the work. And then like Gary Vee, you're a fan of Gary Vee, be the mayor of the town.
Yeah.
Say, hey, we're a local donut shop and they had a grease trap back up and it's gross. Check this out.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, when we got done, they gave us free donuts, and they're fantastic. And you
Right.
video that, and you put it on the internet.
Right.
And you pay your apprentice $1 or $2 more an hour to be responsible for that. And so I think that's free marketing. It's super effective.
Right.
And it's right to our target market. It lets the young apprentice stay on their phone, but be productive with it. Like it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah.
And it seems like no one's doing it.
I know. So it was making me think, and now I just lost my train of thought here. Can't think
That's what happens when you're hosting.
too much. Okay. So when you were, and this kind of brings us up. So you've got this apprentice posting things. And even when you were doing your out of the box marketing, which was actually, from what you showed me, like these were big ideas. This wasn't just like someone recording with their phone and posting something, even though that's what your Instagram videos are more so. But how do you regulate that? Like there are, there's some people who are very laxed and lenient about the way that they come across on social media. And there's some people who are very rigid or more rigid with that. And so then it would be like, well, what if it doesn't make us look good? Or what if, how would you regulate that?
Well, what happens when you don't look good, you don't do well, and then no one sees it.
Right.
So it kind of felt like your stupid videos. Like if you go back to my first videos, I was all nervous and stammering around and stuttering. And now people you say, you're such a natural. And I can do a subject and be done. And it's always like 58 or 59 seconds.
Right.
How do I do a 1-minute video on a given subject? Well, I just did it over and over.
Yeah.
And it just happens.
Yeah.
And so the advice is just get started. If you suck, no one's going to see it.
Right.
And then as you get better and better, more and more people will see it. And if you do it every day, you learn fast.
Yeah. And I'll say to that, like, I don't have a huge following on social media, and that has not stopped my business from growing. Visibility is way more important than followers.
Yes.
And so consistent visibility is going to get you a lot further
Yes.
on social media than anything else, really.
And here's what I've discovered is it's not the audience listening to this social media, but you and I know each other better than we did a half an hour ago.
Right.
I'm not going to forget this conversation.
Yeah.
And our network just doubled.
Yeah.
I know you and you know me.
And that's how it goes. And we met because actually two people, because Ellen showed me your content first.
Yeah.
And then Kimberly, I just talked to this week and I was like, oh, great. Introduced me to Dennis and I'll put him on the podcast, hopefully.
Yes. And so it is the connections, there's the personal connections more than the big audience.
It is for sure.
Makes
You're
a
right.
difference. And so really the reason I'm here is because Ellen Rohr saw my videos 5 years ago and invited me to the Zoom Drain booth.
Yeah.
I said yes. So the other thing that this marketing thing is it started slow. You know that graph, that exponential graph? That's marketing too.
Yep. So snowball. That's what I always say.
Snowballs. And so now I'm here and I'm losing my voice because I've talked to so many people that I know here.
Yeah.
Well, I used to come to a trade show. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah, of course.
And all these connections make sense and they all start to tie together. And it's so valuable. I don't miss a trade show if I can help it.
You know what? Let's talk about that for just 1 minute before we wrap up here. But because I was so lucky to get to record here at AHR, and let's talk about the value of trade shows. I know you said you do a lot of promotion of them. And so this one in particular is a great one and it's huge.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about, I mean, I know you just did, but like there's some people who really don't want to get out there. And if you're a one-man guy in a truck, like is that going to impact you to get to a trade show? Or if you're the marketing manager of a $5 million company, is it going to impact you to go to a trade show? Talk about that.
Yeah, so on the other side of this, like I never went to trade shows for 20 years.
When you were growing your company.
Yeah, well, I'd have buddies beg me to come to the trade show, and I would not. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
And now I never miss. Even if I had a company, I'd still be here. But what I learned is as you grow, you have different issues that come up, and you learn different things, and you need different things. So every year, the trade show could be similar, but it appeals to you differently, and you have different needs.
That's so true.
And then for apprentices, like the apprentices is in the ditch, and so many of them don't see the whole scope. And so I really encourage people to get out. You know what the trade show is? It's actually a business write-off. You can take your wife and kids and you can come to Orlando and spend some time here. Why did you go into business?
You're right.
For
Just
crying
for
out.
more time.
Take a week of vacation, put the show in the middle of it so it's a write-off. Bring your apprentice and show him what he's working for.
Yeah.
And you break a young kid in there. Like a couple of shows I went through, I just went and interviewed young people, and their eyes are just wide. They're just awestruck. And
this one especially. There's so many texts and
so this is why we do the hard work.
Yeah.
This is where we're going. And this is, some people think you're going to be in the trades, you're going to be in the trenches forever. Like, no. I said, if you don't want to dig, get good at it. You'll get pulled up out of the trench.
Right.
And then a lot of those people in there are licensed plumbers and mechanics that moved on into engineering, and they're manufacturing reps. And so this is where you could end up. A lot of these guys are master plumbers in there that can now speak to active plumbers that are actively working. And so the trades are not go to college or get a job in the trades. It's like, no, the trades are this vast world.
Right.
And you can't see it from the trench.
Yep.
So you got to get out. And I'm from Seattle, so I traveled clear across country. But you know how many apprentices are here in Orlando, not at this show?
Yeah,
and so that's
seriously.
You don't have to go to Seattle to go to a trade show, but come to your own local trade show and see what you're working so hard for.
Yeah.
So for me, they're very inspirational.
For sure. And meeting people. Big part.
Absolutely.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, the other cool thing is for the techs, like my brother-in-law. So my brother-in-law is a super tech guy. If you go on a ride along with him, even though he knows more than anybody else about most things technologically, he always gets on and calls the service department. When he's on the phone, he's talking to these service guys. Well, guess where the service guys are? They're at their booth.
Yeah.
And so he meets them in person.
Oh, right.
And so he gets to ask him more in-depth questions.
Yeah.
And so
And you build a relationship with
he
them.
builds a relationship with him. And so when he calls with trouble, they met him at the trade show.
Right.
They remember him.
Yeah. So totally different than just a random person.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he gets invited to all these parties with all these different brands, and he knows all the reps.
Yeah.
And he talks to him on the phone all the time. And that is tremendously valuable when he's in trouble on a job.
Yeah.
Or he's got some job that no other company can handle. He's the one you want there because he knows everybody.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So you're on the Key to Growth podcast. And it's funny, I did ask that question. And I asked, and when I was speaking earlier today, I said, what's the silver bullet of marketing? Because the room said they were mostly marketers. And the answer was really nothing. But so on the Key to Growth podcast, we end the podcast with the question, what is the key to growth?
Yes.
So what is the key to growth?
Being interested. If you're interested, because you see what you're looking for. So you have to see growth, and you have to say, your mind is an answering machine.
Yeah.
So if you say, why am I not growing? Your mind will tell you why you're not growing. Well, because you suck and you're stupid.
You weren't
on social media and you're tired, and because you married the wrong wife, or come up with all these stupid answers. But if you say, how do I grow like Dennis?
Right. Like, how do I get better?
Or how do I get better? You can ask any open-ended positive question in the direction that you want to go. Your mind will come up with a million answers more effectively than ChatGPT.
I was going to say, ChatGPT does that too.
Yes. You have your own ChatGPT. Just ask it the right questions if you're interested.
Yeah.
And you'll grow. And you won't sponsor a bike racing team, and you won't maybe put out campaign signs, because if your name isn't, you can't vote for Galaxy, whatever,
Right.
It's got to be a name. But you can find every company's different and has their own unique thing. Everybody can do something unique and special that builds their own brands for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so people want to find you. Give them the links. Where do they find you?
Just go to Dennis the Apprentice on Instagram, and there's a link tree, and you can find me there. My school platform is there. I've got several courses. They're all free right now, from how to find a job in the trades to how to be a better apprentice to how to sell better.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much.